Picture the table. Sunday dinner. The whole family there. The food is hot. The kids are loud. Someone is arguing about something that does not matter. Someone else is laughing. The room is full and warm and alive with the specific noise that only a full house makes. And at the head of that table sits a man. He is present. He is there. He carved the roast, or he said the grace, or he simply sat down last because everyone else sat first. And that was the order of things, without anyone deciding it. He is surrounded by every person he loves most in the world, and he is completely alone. Not lonely in the way that gets talked about, not the loneliness of an empty apartment or a Friday night with nowhere to go. This is a different kind, quieter, more permanent. The loneliness of a man who is responsible for everything in that room and can tell nobody in that room how heavy the responsibility actually is. Because he is the one at the head of the table. And the man at the head of the table does not say things like that. This is the story of that man. The man your father might have been. The man your grandfather almost certainly was. Maybe the man you are now. The man who sat at the head of millions of American tables for decades and smiled when he was supposed to smile and said very little and carried everything and was never once asked what it cost him. That story has been waiting a long time to be told, honestly. The weight of the head of the table. There is a reason the father sat at the head and not the side. It was not about ego. It was not about dominance. It was about visibility. The man at the head of the table could see everyone, every face, every expression, every sign that something was wrong or off or needed attention. He was watching, always watching. He watched to see if the kids were eating, if his wife looked tired in a way that meant something had happened today that she had not told him yet, if the money worry he had been carrying all week was visible on his face in a way that would frighten the children. He monitored the emotional temperature of the room the way a pilot monitors instruments, constantly, automatically, without anyone knowing he was doing it. And if something was wrong, he fixed it quietly. A joke to break attention. A look across the table that communicated something to his wife that the children were not supposed to understand. A subject changed so smoothly that nobody noticed the subject had been changed. He managed all of it, from the head of the table, every single night. And then dinner ended, and the table was cleared, and he sat in his chair, and he did not talk about what it was like to do that, because there was nobody to tell, because the job of the man at the head of the table was to make it look like there was no job, to make the stability feel effortless so that his family could live inside that stability without ever having to think about what held it up. What held it up was him, and he held it up alone. What he knew that nobody else at the table knew. Here is the thing about the man at the head of the table that his family almost never understood until much later. He knew things nobody else knew. He knew exactly how much money was in the account and exactly how much needed to come out before the end of the month and exactly how much distance there was between those two numbers. He knew which bill was late and how late and what would happen if it got later. He knew that the car needed something done to it that was going to cost more than he wanted to think about. He knew that his job was not as secure as he let anyone believe, and that he had been losing sleep over it for 6 weeks and had told nobody. He sat at that table with all of that information in his head, and he passed the potatoes, and he asked his son about the game, and he laughed at something someone said, and he gave absolutely no indication that any of it was happening inside him. Because that was the deal. That was the unspoken, unwritten, completely understood deal that the man at the head of the table had made with everyone around it. I will handle the things that are frightening. I will stand between you and the worst of it. I will absorb the worry so that you do not have to carry it. In return, he asked for nothing. Not because he did not need anything, but because asking was not part of the deal. The loneliness that has no name. There is a specific kind of loneliness that comes from being the person everyone depends on. It does not look like loneliness from the outside. From the outside, it looks like strength. It looks like confidence. It looks like a man who has everything under control because he always seems to have everything under control. But inside that man is a question that never gets asked and therefore never gets answered. Is anybody going to check on me? Not in a desperate way. Not in a way that requires a crisis or a breakdown or a dramatic moment where the mask comes off and everyone rushes to help. Just in a quiet, ordinary Tuesday evening way. Someone sitting down next to him. Not because anything is wrong, just because they wanted to sit there. Just because they thought about him for a moment and decided that he might be worth checking on. That almost never happened to the man at the head of the American table, because the role he occupied was so thoroughly defined as the role of the checker-on that nobody ever thought to reverse the direction. He was the one who made sure everyone was okay. He was the one who noticed when someone needed something. He was the one who showed up. The idea that he might need someone to show up for him was genuinely not part of the cultural script. It was not that his family did not love him. They loved him completely. It was that love had a shape in that household, and the shape did not include the possibility that the man at the head of the table was also a man who sometimes needed someone to sit next to him and not say anything in particular and just be there. That shape cost him more than anyone knew. What happened after the kids left? The children leaving home was supposed to be a triumph. The whole point of everything he had done. The proof that it had worked. Healthy children launched into the world, carrying with them everything he had quietly given them over 2 decades. And it was a triumph. He was proud, in a way that lived in his chest and made it hard to breathe sometimes, when he thought about it directly. But the house got quiet in a way he had not prepared for. The table that had seated 6 now seated 2. The noise that had been the background of his entire adult life was simply gone. The managing and the watching and the constant low-level vigilance that had structured every evening for 20 years had nothing left to do. And he sat at the head of that smaller table and he looked at his wife and he realized that he did not quite know how to do this. This version, the version where the children were gone and the job was winding down and the things that had defined him for 30 years were receding, and what was left was just him. Not the provider, not the protector, not the man at the head of the table, just him. And he was not sure who that was anymore, because he had spent so long being the role that he had never had much chance to figure out the man underneath it. The role had been all-consuming, and he had given himself to it completely. And that had been the right thing to do. He did not regret it. But now the role was over, and he was in his late 50s or his 60s, and the question of who he was without it was not a question he had ever been given permission to ask. So he sat at the smaller table, and he got quieter. And the people who loved him noticed, but did not quite know what to do about it. And the distance between what he was feeling and what anyone around him understood he was feeling grew in the silence between them. The conversation that almost never happened. There was a conversation that should have happened between the man at the head of the table and the people who sat around it. It should have happened on an ordinary evening, not during a crisis. Not at the end, when it was too late for it to change anything. Just on an ordinary Tuesday, when the dinner was done, and the dishes were in the sink, and the house was quiet. Someone should have sat down next to him and said something simple. Something like, "I don't think I ever asked you what this has been like for you. So I am asking now, What has it been like? And he would have deflected. The first time, maybe the second time, because deflection was a reflex built over decades and it did not disappear because someone finally asked the right question. But if they had stayed, if they had sat there and not accepted the deflection and just waited, he would have talked. Not everything, not all at once, but something, some fragment of what it had actually been like to sit at the head of that table and carry what he had carried for as long as he had carried it. Some small piece of the interior life that had never been shared, because nobody had ever created the conditions for sharing it. That conversation happened in some houses. In some families, someone had the instinct and the patience and the love to sit there and wait him out, and something real passed between them that changed everything slightly for the better. In most houses, it did not happen. The moment never came, or it came, and nobody recognized it, or the habit of silence was simply too old and too deep to interrupt. And the man at the head of the table took it with him. All of it. Quietly and completely. The way he had done everything else. What we carry from him, here is the part that will make you stop if you let it. He is in you. If you grew up at that table, if you sat in one of those chairs and watched that man from across the food and the noise and the ordinary chaos of a family dinner, something transferred. Something passed from him to you without either of you intending it or noticing it happening. His way of carrying things alone. His instinct to manage the room without being seen to manage it. His default to action over expression. His belief, held somewhere below the level of conscious thought, that asking for help is a kind of failure, and that the right thing to do with difficulty is to absorb it privately and let it show on you as little as possible. Those things are in you. Some of them are gifts. The reliability, the capacity to show up, the ability to function under pressure without falling apart. Some of them are costing you in ways you may not have connected to him yet. The man at the head of the table did not choose to pass those things on. He was not even aware he was passing them on. He was just living the only way he knew how to live, the way his father had lived and his grandfather before that. But the inheritance is real, and now it is yours. And what you do with it, whether you carry it exactly as he carried it, or whether you put some of it down and live slightly differently than he did, that is a choice you have in a way that he never quite did. He sat at the head of that table, and he gave everything he had. The least you can do is know what it cost him. And maybe, not for any dramatic reason, just because it is true and it matters, say that out loud to someone. The table is still there in some houses. Different family now. Different generation of children making the noise. Different worries behind the eyes of the man at the head. But the same shape. The same deal. The same unspoken agreement that he will handle what is frightening and carry what is heavy and manage what needs managing, and ask for nothing in return except the quiet satisfaction of knowing that everyone around that table is okay. He is still there, doing what the man at the head of the table has always done, and he is still the loneliest man in the room. Look at him next time. Really look, not at the role, at the man inside it. Ask him something real. Not how was your day or how is the job. Something real. Ask him what he is proud of. Ask him what he wishes had gone differently. Ask him what he hopes for now. Give him a question that cannot be answered with fine. And then sit there and wait and let him know that you are not going anywhere. Because nobody ever did that for the man at the head of the table. And it is long past time that somebody did. If this made you think of the man at your table, your father, your grandfather, maybe yourself, leave something in the comments. A memory, a name, a single sentence about who he was. I will read everyone. And if this is the kind of story you believe deserves to be told, subscribe. There are more of these men. There always were. And every one of them deserved more than the silence they were given.